Hi, everyone. Let's just test. Oh, yeah? Cool, thanks. That was such a great talk, Mega. Like, awesome job. Cool. So I'm Katie Womersly. I'm Director of Engineering at Buffer. We're most known for being radically transparent and fully remote, but in our day jobs, we do social media scheduling. And I'm here to talk to you today about manager Gameface, or rather, how do you avoid it? How do you be an authentic leader, especially when you're new? So can I get a quick show of hands here? Who here is a new manager? Perhaps you're in your first 6 or so months on the job? Awesome. So this is mostly aimed at exactly you new managers, and it's going to be really great. But I've experienced a lot of this at every different stage of my role. So both as a new engineering manager, as my team has grown, as a new director, being new to the executive team. So a lot of you are a lot more seasoned, so I hope you can find something there. So you've probably heard that you should be really authentic as a leader, right? Like you should just open up and be yourself. But on the other hand, you know, it's a very specific job to lead, and it's not always natural to do that. You do have to step up, and you do have to inspire confidence in your team, and you do need to project a certain image of professionalism, for lack of a better word. So this here is the paradox of authenticity. On the one hand, we're told, you know, just be yourself, you don't put on a mask. But on the other hand, you're also hearing, you know, like, be professional. I mean, you have to, like, step up, you know, inspire confidence. So what do? I mean, do you just sort of admit that, look, I have no idea what I'm doing here, anyway, sorry. Or do you fake it until you make it and put on a game face? When I was first promoted to my first role as an engineering manager, I went full on, like, manager Gameface. Like, I was promoted as one of the newer software engineers on a team that had tried out self-management, and it hadn't gone that well, sort of hence me. I was also one of the newer engineers on that team, and I was younger than all of my soon-to-be direct reports. I was also the only woman at the time, so Meg has talked a lot about what that was like, and I felt all of that, you know, why me, you know, what is the bar? And one of my new direct reports asked me, like, hey, have you done this before? And the panic, I just felt like I have no idea what I'm doing, and they know, they can see right through me. I felt so vulnerable. So basically, I did what any reasonable person would do in that situation, I thought at the time, and I kind of fudged it. I, you know, missed a beat, but then I was back on it, and I said, yeah, well, my previous company, we didn't use a lot of formal titles. I was kind of a lead there, and we tried out self-management, so that seemed plausible. And I then went and read all of the books. If you want a book recommendation, hit me up. I followed a bunch of engineering leaders on Twitter, some of whom spoke here today. And I Googled how to do everything, you know, like how to run staff meeting, how to do a one-to-one. Like, a lot of that was really helpful. But I was really careful, like in every interaction, to like bring my most professional manager self. And I think it's really scary to open up because it legitimately is risky. You could be confirming other people's worst fears about you. And I have seen this happen, and your team wants to follow somebody that knows where they're going. You know, people don't want to see in their leader like, oh, I'm really scared. I've also seen leaders that are so much buddies, so much just themselves, we're just gonna hang out, you know, that while everybody gets on pretty well, with no one clearly leading, it's very difficult for a team to resolve issues, and I've seen this fall into demotivation and frustration. I think putting on a lot of game face is so common because being a good manager, it's a huge responsibility, and it is a very specific role. I mean, you do need to level up, and you do need to lead in a way that's not always going to feel natural. But I was so focused on leveling up that I wasn't really coming across as human. I stumbled on what I needed to change mainly by accident. I was kind of talking, and I remember making a ridiculous pun. I don't remember what it was, but somebody said, like, that is so lame. It's actually funny. And a couple of people kind of chuckled, and I felt pretty flustered. I was like, oh, not very professional. You know, wrap that up, Katie. But at the same time, when I had these like little accident moments, you know, where the true me would sort of slip out, in those little moments, I felt my relationships with the people I was working with deepen in an almost magical way. So I kind of had to close my eyes and grit my teeth and lean into it. It didn't come naturally at all, and it was, for me, the most difficult growth moment as a new manager. But it turns out that my manager Gameface was just not very helpful when two humans are trying to work together and figure each other out. I think it's so common to go one way or the other, either a very strong kind of manager image, or the sort of, oh, I'm just going to be myself and be a buddy, stay the buddy. Because the middle way of being a leader, but also being authentic and true to yourself, is full of mystery. So I'm here to demystify this middle way and show you some of the things that you can do on Monday, like at work, to be an awesome EM or tech lead, whatever your title is, that your team is going to be excited to follow, but also be authentically you. The main thing to know here is that the less that is implied or mysterious about you, the safer other people are going to feel, working with you, relying on you, and critically, as a manager, being open with you about themselves. So the three methods I'm going to share in this talk to demystify this happy middle way are being really clear on what you're here for. What is your job description? Having a good idea of what you stand for by creating a manager README, and then understanding leadership styles or colors, as I'll explain them, which can help you learn how to lead from your natural strengths. So in that way, you'll be showing strong leadership, but also coming across as authentic. You're presenting something true of yourself. So what is your job? Literally, raise your hand if you can write down, in like 30 seconds or less, a pretty clear, accurate description of like what it is you do at work as a leader of some kind. Who could write it down? Cool. You're really lucky, and that's awesome. I saw very few yeses. I saw a lot of uncertain, I guess if I thought really hard, if I really focused. And a lot of you have not raised your hand, so maybe you just don't like raising your hand. But I think it's I think it's really common in our industry to get promoted to a lead and then sort of have go lead. That's sort of it. And it's like, what do you mean by that? So it's really important if you don't have a job description, if you don't know what it is that I do, I am here and I'm going to ensure A and B. If you don't have that clear in your mind, this is homework. You should go home and write that down, and you should have that. You need to have your job description front and center of your mind at all time. You're there on your team as a tech lead, an engineering manager, whatever it is, to ensure these specific things that you care about. And knowing what your job is means that you can share that openly and humbly with your team. There's a third thing that you can point to, the job. As an engineering lead, I'm here to, for example, support and empower you to do your best work. So I'm going to do that through holding regular one-to-ones with you, where I'll get to know your goals, and I'll figure out how you can best grow and flourish here on Team X. Also, I am accountable to the overall health and the productivity of Team X. So that means I'll be leading the sprint planning, and I'll be leading retros, and that's going to help us set impactful goals as a team that are also sustainable and realistic. If you can have this really clear, if you can say this, it means that your team is able to understand and respect the work that you do and why you do the things you do. But more importantly than that, it means that you will be able to understand and respect your own role a lot more clearly. And sometimes that can be the single biggest thing that's holding you back. So once you're really clear on what your job is, and that might be harder than you think, the next thing that is very helpful in coming across as authentic, sharing who you are, but as a leader, is creating a manager README. So Rand's talked a lot about his README in the talk. It's sort of a document like any other software README, and it's how you operate as a manager. This covers two objectives. The first is people know who you are as a leader and as a person. They know what you value, and they know what is expected, what they can expect from you and what you're going to expect from them. This is very helpful for building trust because it's hard to trust an unknown quantity, right? And then secondly, the other purpose of having a README is you're a lot more likely to get feedback from your team, from your direct reports, if they know what you expect from yourself. The most common reason that I've heard for not giving managers feedback is, oh, I wasn't sure if it was their job to do blah, blah, blah. Or like, I'm just not sure if they should have, or, I'm not really clear on what managers do. And if you think of how few of you don't have job descriptions for yourselves, I mean, if you think of from your team's perspective, like, how clear is your team on what exactly you're expecting from yourself? So especially if you're a new manager, but at all stages of your career, getting this feedback is so important for growing as a leader. So this is a light outline of the couple of things that I like to cover in a README. The first is your leadership philosophy. So what is it that you value and optimize for as a leader? This is probably going to change over time, and that's healthy, that's okay. So examples of this I've seen are, I optimize for long-term relationships, beyond this one role, maybe even beyond this one company. Or I value transparency and empowerment as a leader. Or I'm here to help other people flourish. Then sharing expectations, so both what you expect from your direct reports and what they can expect from you. There'll be a panel later on difficult conversations. I see Christian over there. And it's really helpful to have these kind of expectations sort of clearly, humbly documented ahead of finding yourself in a weird situation where you realize you have very clear expectations and they're very far from met. It's great if they're shared ahead of time. And then lastly, sharing anything that people should know about you, your sort of human strangeness, as Rand's put it. If you happen to ask questions in your first one-to-ones to get to know folks, a good idea could be sharing what your own answers are to those questions. So whether it's how many siblings you have or what you look for in a manager yourself. Having a really clear job description and having a manager README are like having an authenticity toolbox. So these are tools you can use. And I do recommend using a little bit of setup for yourself. So rather than just being like, here's my manager README, which is something I have done, you can instead say something like, look, I was at Calibrate, it's a conference for engineering leaders, and I heard a lot about this manager README concept, and apparently it's very helpful. I've taken a stab at creating one, and I'd love to hear what you think. I've shared my README with tons of people at this point, and no one has ever said to me that it's weird, and I was very worried that it would be weird, because you're creating this document about yourself, right? It's like, here is a document about me. Read it. Like, excuse me, who are you? It's so arrogant. That has literally never happened. I mean, people are genuinely curious, and they've been quite touched that I would take the time and the trouble to share about me as a leader. And they wanted to know, like, what's going on? How do you work? They want to work effectively with you. So if you do just one thing from this conference or from this talk specifically, I would recommend make it a manager README. So authenticity is a minefield, and there's a lot to unpack here. Like when you're sharing your README and here's all about me as a leader, stereotypes do really influence what we perceive as leadery, right? So Fortune 500 CEOs, they're predominantly white men. Also, their average height is 6'2". Now that's 2.5 inches taller than the average for men in the USA, and it's substantially taller than the average for all of us in the USA, even if you wear wedges. So. Right, so leadership coaches are telling us, be authentic, share your mistakes, be open about your shortcomings and your self-doubt. Now, if I do that as a white man who's 6'2", I'm probably going to come across as very authentic. People are going to think, wow, like he's so real, and they're going to think, what a great leader. And the stock price is going to soar, it's going to be great. If I do that as a woman, I might be confirming my employer's worst fears about me. So if you are part of a marginalized group, you have a really good sense already of what's safe and what is not safe for you to experiment with when being authentic. I won't go into all of that, but I do want to say that other leaders are here to support you as you figure this out. In groups like the RAND's Leadership Slack group, looking through a lot of the manager READMEs, I'll share a great resource where you can read tons of them at the end. And just talking to folks at places like this conference where diversity and inclusion is something that I think we all care about. So before getting much deeper into these snakes and ladders, I'll share a little bit of what authenticity is and what it isn't. I thought a ton about this when writing this talk. And authenticity does not mean sharing everything that's on your mind. It doesn't mean having no filter. Like, you should have a filter. It also doesn't mean a free pass to stay inside your comfort zone. or to fall foul of the naturalistic fallacy. Like, I'm not naturally outgoing, so thinking, oh, well, then I can't do presentations, that's a fallacy, that's not authenticity, right? It also doesn't mean that you're exactly the same in every situation. Right now, you're seeing conference talk, Katie. This is who I am when I'm on a stage with a mic and I have slides and I'm talking to you. And I'm trying to adjust my behavior to you as an audience. Like, this is definitely not how I talk to my mom on the phone. What authenticity does mean is that your actions are in accordance with your values, and that what you do as a leader, it connects to who you are as a person and to what this situation is calling for. And you do present aspects of yourself selectively, depending on what the situation needs. This is very natural, and most people will unconsciously read emotional cues. Like, I don't know if you've ever run into a room laughing and very lighthearted and just realized oh, this is a very serious situation. And you've just known what is called from me right now is gravitas, and you just drop the laughter and you're like, right. So that is authentic. That is sensing what's needed from you to connect to another human in a way that is authentic. Most neurotypical humans do this fairly naturally. My cousin is heavily autistic, and he is taught to do this. Specifically, they have diagrams and slides. Somebody smiles at you, smile back. So this is not sneaky. This is not manipulative. This is fundamental to what it means to be human. And this is all very abstract, right? Presenting different ways of yourself in different situations, but how? So a way I like to picture this is with leadership colors. Leadership colors are a metaphor for different ways of leading. Some people think of different personas. I've also heard of leadership animals, like leading like a lion or leading like a raccoon. I'm not super sure how that works, so I'm going to stick with the colors for this one. So this is from the amazing Laura Hogan. The blog post is there, and it's linked at the end. Also, Laura does coaching, and she's great. And the idea is that of these types of colors, these are just examples. You could add other colors, whatever works for you. We'll all have our default ones, the colors that come really easily. Then there's ones that are a comfortable stretch. If you put your mind to it, you can embody that color. And then there's ones that are really quite way out there, right? So red is a bit of edge, a bit of urgency, intensity. Orange, very cautious. Think of construction worker orange. Yellow is bubbly, joke-cracking. Green, very all about the feelings. Blue is calm, reliable, steady. Creative and flowy is purple. Brown is nuance, subtlety, complexity. And black is blunt and unfeeling, very cut and dry. I always picture M from Bond, when she says, "And Bond, if you break into my apartment one more time, I'll have you shot." It's very clear. So. My default color is red. Apparently it's about the way I raise my eyebrows these days, so. The pro is I've never explicitly had to tell someone, listen, we're here to do a job. And it does bring a lot of energy to a team. There's a lot of focus, a lot of striving. We can get a lot done, which is exciting. The first thing you learn when red is your default color is how to do blue before everyone around you is completely exhausted. So at this point, I can be the steady, the reliable leader fairly comfortably. My hardest color is purple, for sure. I once had a leadership coach, and she was saying, to be a leader, you need to have this vision and inspire people and show the end destination and craft this narrative and take everybody along. And it sounded so legit, and I was all in. And we had this sprint kickoff, and I was trying to craft this story, and I was just rambling, and my team was like, who is this? And we kicked it off on a pretty shaky note. We didn't have the usual, let's crush this kind of red pep talk. And they were a little confused and anxious. So purple was at that time way too much of a stretch. It's not that my leadership coach was wrong. It's just that it wasn't a natural color for me. And when I suddenly just tried it out, it backfired on me. It came across as not authentic. So does anyone here recognize a natural leadership color for them? Oh, I'm seeing lots of nodding. That's awesome. It took me a lot of reflection. I think it's because I didn't want to think of myself as an angry leader. So I try to avoid admitting that red was my default. It is. Knowing your default colors is really powerful because that is why you're here. This is what got you to where you are now. So there's definitely a lot to be said there. By keeping a lot of your leadership in this zone, maybe 60% of the time, drawing on the leadership color that comes easily, comes naturally, helps you show up as a leader, but also is authentically you. That is going to help you to come across as a very credible leader and also as yourself. And because different situations do call for different styles of leadership, it's important to practice the next closest the next closest colors. So if somebody is saying to me, like, Katie, I'm pretty exhausted and feeling a little burned out, I mean, you don't want to be a red leader at that point. Like, that's just not helpful at all. You want to bring a different color. And then lastly, learn what really different colors. So for me, green or yellow, like, those are really different ones. Learn what they look like on you, and look for lower stakes situations. Situations where, like, it doesn't matter too much if your team is looking at you like, that's weird, who are you? Those little moments, they just will happen. So choose moments where it's not very high stakes, right? Not the quarterly architecture review meeting. Like, choose something more chill. Okay. Now lastly, growing as a leader and learning how to be authentic, but also inspire trust, confidence in others, and having that credibility, it is an ongoing journey. And the best thing that I ever did was get a leadership coach, or at this point, a series of coaches. And the benefit of this is they can help you work through specific challenges and scenarios as they arise and figure out how to do this in a way that is in tune with your own values and find your own leadership voice. As you gain experience over time, you're going to find more and more ways to lead that ring true of you. And in this journey, support from other managers, from professionals like coaches or therapists, are really helpful. Like, if you can afford that or get your company to pay, it's one of the best investments you can make in yourself and in your career. Because the better that you can understand and trust yourself, the stronger and the more authentic the leadership you'll be able to show. And as you continue on this journey, the best advice that I can give you is to remember that you're not alone. So I've put these slides up on SpeakerDeck, and I'll tweet them out as well. These are the resources I mentioned. The first one is like a hub of manager READMEs where you can find tons of READMEs, and that's really helpful. There's about my own, the leadership colors, and a bit more on the paradox of authenticity, so I'll share those. And then thank you so much for your time, and especially your attention today. Like, I know you've had a lot of talks, and I really appreciate how present many of you, I think all of you really, have been with this talk. This is a very slow animation, so when it does finish loading eventually, there are more trees, it's keeping going. Eventually, yeah, my Twitter handle and my email will come up here. So really, if you email me, I would be delighted. You can DM me on Twitter, my DMs are open. I would love nothing more than to carry on this conversation with you. Thank you all so much for your time.